So one of the biggest questions, and I do apologize if you hear any vibrational noises, those are going to be like notifications, emails, message, you name it. I do apologize if you hear any kind of stuff, if you know what I mean. But anyway, there's been a lot of talk of, AEW's future, on TNT, TBS, and so on, Warner Brothers Discovery in general. And it seems that whether you like it or not, they are definitely going to be staying. And I think a lot of us, whether we are fans of AEW, whether we're fans of both companies or all of wrestling, I think we all knew that AEW wasn't going anywhere. I think we knew that. And according to Fightful Select and Fightful's Patreon page, basically Brandon Thurston tweeted out the following regarding a report from John Ourand at Puck. And basically John Ourand reports that AEW's new media deal with WB looks like, and he put that in quotations, it'll be a 4-year deal, 3 years guaranteed with a 1-year option. Ourand says $170 million per year is, quote unquote, apparently in the ballpark. And he has a link to that as well. He says, I think this is still John Ourand. He says AEW will air on TNT, TBS, and TruTV twice per week. Now, I don't know if that means TNT and TBS will be showing repeats of Dynamite and Collision, or TruTV will be the one that shows it. We're not really sure. And we also have that AEW Shockwave trademark that was done by Tony Khan. So one can assume that if there is a show on TruTV twice per week, then you're going to probably make that Shockwave. You might make that Shockwave, and you might make that, also home to repeats of Dynamite and Collision, because it says, going back to this part of the article, it says AEW will air on TNT, TBS, and TruTV twice per week as part of a strategy to make TruTV more sports-oriented. The announcement of the deal could, and this is in quotations, could come as soon as next week, barring any last-minute changes. He goes on to say, and I think this is again John Ourand, he says, AEW is pitching an additional package to broadcast networks. The report at one point refers to AEW as, quote-unquote, a second-tier wrestling. The report at one point, let me reread that. The report at one point refers to AEW as, quote, second-tier wrestling, though Ourand writes that the deal, quote, marks a clear success for AEW. Now, there have been reports that they could end up on Fox. We don't know if that's going to be the same Fox broadcasting that, SmackDown was on. We don't know if it's FS1, FS2, Tubi. We don't know. But broadcast tells me something like Fox, or at least the Fox-affiliated stations. But continuing on. They say, and I quote, contacts we've spoken to close to the situation claim that this information, now this is Brandon Thurston and Fightful, says, contacts we've spoken to close to the situation claim that this information does reflect the truth, and the deal is being closed in on. We do not have a date in which the deal will be announced. Sources we've spoken to at AEW say that things have been tight-lipped about the future of the deal, and that talent have not been privy to the details of AEW's TV future or the future of pay-per-views. However, several on both sides that we've spoken to believe that the Max/pay-per-view and streaming deals very well could be separate from the amount outlined by Ourand, and a part, I'm trying to read this correctly, and a part of a different deal the two sides are working on. So basically what that's saying here is that the deal to remain on TBS, TNT, and then debut on TruTV, potentially with the Shockwave show and reruns of Collision and Dynamite, what that's telling me is basically they want to, I guess, organize, make sure things are organized, and separate to where it's like, okay, let's focus on this. let's have one group, I should say, focus on this, and then another group focus on that. And I think that's what I'm getting at. Again, they have two groups focusing on a deal, one for TBS, TNT, TruTV, and broadcast, while the other is working on the whole streaming, Max, and pay-per-view situation. Continuing on, and let me look this up. Bring up this information more. Continuing on, it says 200. Okay, it says 200 million a year was a large benchmark, which led to the quote one bill field quote talking points, which reference AEW being able to get an all-encompassing deal of 200 million per year on average over 5 years, equaling $1 billion total. While the length of the deal wouldn't get them there, the 170 million figure plus additional pay-per-view deals or revenue, as well as outside packages likely would. Fightful reported earlier this summer that AEW had already been offered, quote, at least double their previous right fees. Just after the Paris Olympics, another deal had been sent AEW's way, which we're told was, quote, lengthy and needed to be heavily reviewed. As of AEW All Out Weekend, WBD sources told Fightful that talks were, quote, immaculable and ongoing. AEW is still shopping additional packages, something that we're told Tony Khan has been interested in doing in quite some time. It would appear as a result of this, AEW no longer will be exclusive to WBD, which was negotiated in as a result of the AEW Collision deal. This led to AEW Dark and Elevation being removed from AEW's YouTube slate. Fox has become a party of interest regarding AEW and had also spoken to two other wrestling companies outside of WWE in recent years. WBD has already prepared materials to announce the slate of programming for 2025. We've not heard of any talks regarding Ring of Honor, but that's not to say those conversations haven't happened. Although AEW's figures aren't publicly known, a TV deal of this side would make them profitable. And then they say that Andrew Zarian and Rich will have many more details on Beyond the Bell yesterday morning, because this was reported yesterday. But what that tells me, ladies and gentlemen, with this deal is, yeah, it is going to happen. It is going to happen for AEW, whether you like AEW or not. But I think the one thing that people will kind of take from this report is it's not exact. It's that basically it's 30 million less than what Tony Khan originally was wanting. Tony Khan obviously wanted that 2 million, maybe 250 million, if you will, to kind of get the company profitable a lot quicker than 170 will. But if they're saying that all the other stuff that they're working in is going to equal up to that 1 billion mark, that 2 million would have gotten them to quicker, I think 170 is is a good enough deal in my opinion. I think it's a great deal in my opinion. But what's interesting though is people will look at this and they'll say, well, wait a minute. According to what that report says, they're going to have a guaranteed 3-year run, but the 4th year is optional, and a lot of people will compare that to, like, let's say what WWE's doing with Netflix. And basically, they'll say, well, WWE's being given guaranteed 5 years, and the following 5 years could be optional as well, because it's initially a 5-year deal with 5 additional years being optional added on. And people will look at that and honestly be like, well, that just shows that WBD might find AEW being profitable and viewable and somewhat of a rating success for them, but it also shows that they don't have much faith in them if they're not going to give them 2 million, if they're not going to give them exactly what Tony Khan is asking for. And that's understandable. But again, I think this is a good enough deal, because what I believe it does, because you can't tell me Tony Khan is not thrilled with not getting what he wants, but getting something that will get him to that point, but not as quickly as he was hoping for, that 1 billion point. you can't tell me that this might motivate him. This might motivate him to be like, okay, what do I need to do to get people to tune in and watch the product, buy tickets? What can I do? And I think, honestly, I think, getting less than what he's expecting is going to maybe hopefully motivate him. I know that's giving him a lot of credit in the eyes of a lot of folks. I know that's giving him a lot of credit. But I think this is going to motivate him a bit, or at least the team around him, to be like, okay, we need to do better. We need to do something that's going to pack the arenas, because honestly, if you look online, there is an image from last week's Dynamite that essentially somebody in attendance took this picture, and the hard cam side, all of the seats, except for maybe one or two, are, not, bleacher wise, the stands, all those seats empty except for one or two. Well, the floor seats are all pretty much filled, on the arena floor, basically the floor seats on the arena floor, all filled. But the upper deck, the stands, completely empty except for one or two. And if you're Tony Khan, you don't want that image to be floating around, especially when you're trying to get a deal that you feel you deserve, or you feel you've earned in the past 5 years. So I think, in my opinion, Tony Khan, he's not happy with, this potential deal being not exactly what he wanted, but hopefully it's going to motivate him and his team to do better. And he's got all the pieces in place, with his company, with certain talent and stories that can help him get to that level. And with rumors of a certain second generation son coming in, potentially to lead in a more realistic, more believable hostile takeover invasion, that might do it. But we'll have to see. But I think the reason though, that AEW is not where it should be, at this time, is because a lot of wrestling fans, even those that love AEW, the reason they don't attend the weekly events is not because of, ticket prices are expensive, even for regular seating, general seating. I mean, WWE's expensive too, don't get me wrong. I mean, they're going to lessen house shows, and that's going to raise prices potentially in the coming year. But the point I'm getting at, it's not just because of that, but I think a lot of people, they look at AEW, and what they see is a hybrid, a fusion of the best of the best. I'm trying to get this out of my I'm trying to get what I'm about to say out of my mouth as best I can. I do apologize. But what they see with AEW is essentially a fusion of the best of what made WCW good and what made ECW good. And basically that's what they see here with AEW. They see a company that started out strong, and kept going for at least 2-3 years, but then all of a sudden just started to die out because the realization hit people that this is nothing more than a hybrid of WCW and ECW. And, it's basically repeating the same kind of patterns and matches and stuff like that. And it's like, where's the difference? Where's it being a true alternative? All we see is basically it trying to be a modern day WCW, ECW hybrid. And I think that's why, more significantly than anything, they're not selling out the weekly shows. The pay-per-views are doing good. I mean, yeah, at first the ticket sales, may not seem to be, doing well and everything, but over time, especially I think maybe within the week or the last couple of days between Dynamite and Collision and the pay-per-view, tickets will sell and you'll get a near sellout. But the point is, despite that difference, what people see is a hybrid of WCW and ECW for a modern era. And people don't like that. They don't like that. So I think, in my opinion, that's why it's down. It's still viewable. It still has its fans. Don't get me wrong. But it's down because it's essentially a blending of the two more prominent companies outside of WWE. That's what it is. It is a more, it's more basically, um, how do I put this? It's more essentially, it's more of a company. I'm trying to find the right word to say. It's more of a company that, like I said, it's taking the best of what made both ECW and WCW great. And I was just checking something on my computer, which is why I was a little distracted there. But like I said, it's just a company doing that. And I think that's why attendance has gone from being what it was, where you had sellouts or near sellouts every week for Dynamite and even Collision when it debuted, to now, practically less than that. It's practically less than that. And I think, again, going back to what I said earlier, hopefully the deal, if the report is accurate, and nothing is confirmed. Nothing is truly confirmed just yet, but it seems like we're getting close to that. We could get an announcement as soon as tonight, or maybe at the 5th anniversary show. But the point is, the point is, I'm hoping, and again, I know it's giving him too much credit. I'm hoping this might motivate Tony Khan to be like, okay, if I want to get a better deal, if I want to renegotiate going into that 4th year or after my 3rd year, if I want to have that optional 4th year added on, I need to make my product not a modern day version hybrid of WCW, ECW. I need to make it the first AEW. And hopefully this deal, if what we're hearing is true, does exactly that. Now, I get some people will criticize AEW and Tony Khan for, booking the venues and, which is, these bigger venues, bigger than they should. And thus that's the reason they have the empty seats and these embarrassing shots always being put online. And I understand it. I get it. And some people are even going to criticize them because, and what I mean criticize them for it is they'll basically say, well, look what WWE did with NXT in St. Louis. Obviously, they couldn't sell out or sell enough tickets for the Enterprise Center, so they've moved it over to the factory in the St. Louis, or within the St. Louis region. The factory, which is a much smaller venue, and they can sell out. A lot of people, will criticize AEW for not doing that, and that's the reason for these images floating around. And you can't tell me these images don't get to those over at the WBD, and they're like, well, yeah, people still like it, but what's going on here? And that can't be like a deciding factor as them being like, well, we could offer them $2 million, but if this is the end result attendance-wise, we can't do that. We got to offer them less, and then hopefully maybe that'll encourage them to do better. But we'll see. We'll see what they do. But it's just, when I look at this deal, Tony Khan, again, needs to take, getting this kind of an offer as motivation to do better. Him and his team need to do that. Now, I will give him credit because from what it sounds like to me with this article, as I said, it sounds like they've got two separate teams working on two separate deals. One for the TV deal and one for the pay-per-views and streaming deal. And I think that's a good move because you don't want to get so, discombobulated, if you will, and confused with one team doing both deals at the same time simultaneously. You want to have them doing one deal and focusing on that, and then, in this case, have another team focus on the other deal and try to get that done. Now, here's the question, though, about the deal with Max. We don't know if it's going to be, because, again, the way this sounds, yes, pay-per-views could be simulcast on Max and pay-per-view, just like WWE does with Peacock and pay-per-view. We know that. But we don't know if WBD might say, hey, yeah, we'll let your pay-per-views be on Max, but we need to charge people. We don't know because we don't know if that's going to happen because from what I'm reading here, that sounds like a possibility. That sounds like, This could make things interesting. This could make people be like, well, what's the difference if we're paying for the pay-per-view and then we're paying the same price on Max? What's the difference? That to me is going to make things really interesting if that's something that they do. Not saying that they will. Not saying that they will, but that is something to, keep an eye on, in my opinion, of could, they decide, hey, let's, charge, people money for the pay-per-views, while the same kind of money, maybe $10 less, who knows, but charge them money, either, the $49.99, $59.99, or maybe less, $10 less because it's on Max, which would be like $49.99 or $39.99. Let's charge them money to purchase the pay-per-view, make it a true premium event. Do you not think that might not upset people if that turns out to be the case? Because it will. But hopefully that's not going to happen. What I could see happening with this deal, and this would be a bit of a change in direction, if you will. This could be a bit of a change, in direction, if you will. And I'm just checking something right now. But like I said, this could be a bit of a change in direction. And that change could be that, this deal to try to get AEW content like Dynamite and like replays of Dynamite and Collision and Rampage, as well as archival footage of, archival footage of, AEW from the beginning and AEW, up to you get what I'm saying. I'm trying to think about, trying to find the right words to put together here. But anyway, like I said, you could see all that. You could see, potentially, all of that being what Tony Khan wants to do, to have a place where you get replays of Dynamite and Collision, maybe, the next day or maybe an hour or so after they premiere on, TBS and TNT, same with Rampage, but also wanting a place to where he can show the library, the archival library, of AEW from the beginning, as well as, Ring of Honor from the beginning. Like he owns the entire Ring of Honor library. So, he wants to have a place where people can see the history of Ring of Honor, see who's gone through Ring of Honor, and why, some of the people in AEW with that Ring of Honor, past, that history, who are essential to the company, why they're important to the company. So, he wants that. But one could also assume that if, along with that, wanting that he might have to, probably, have a deal made to where, he gets all that, but he still has to, fall on the pay-per-view mindset, but in a unique, different way. And what I mean by that, and I know it sounds like I'm rambling a lot here, I do apologize, but what I mean by that is I think what could happen is instead of maybe, like I said, having, a pay-per-view, a streaming, PLE pay-per-view model like WWE does, where it's, where if you're a subscriber to Peacock, you get the pay-per-view for free. If you're a subscriber to Peacock, especially at the premium tiers, well, you get it for free anyway, but, with, basically, with premium, you don't have to worry about commercials and everything. If you don't have the premium plus tier, basically you have commercials, but you get the idea. If he wants something similar to that, first of all, that's great if he wants that. If he wants to have a similar model to that, that's great. But also there's that chance, like I mentioned earlier, to where they could decide to charge for a pay-per-view, maybe at the same price, if not less, than, the actual pay-per-view price is. Like, you pay, as I mentioned earlier, you pay $49.99 for an AEW pay-per-view. You could be paying that same price, if not $10 less on Max, just to watch it. So that's something that could happen too as part of this deal. Or what could also happen, this is what I was trying to get to, they could agree that, hey, you got to keep that pay-per-view model, but we will allow free replays of the pay-per-view 24 hours after they air on pay-per-view. I could see that. I could see that being something. Or they could say, hey, you got to keep the pay-per-view model, but will allow replays an hour after the pay-per-view is over. Free replays, that is. I can see that. I can see that being part of the deal. And it may not be what Tony Khan wants, but still it gets the pay-per-views on Max, just not in the way he was hoping for. Now, how would that affect people like, let's say, a JD from NY206 or a, Alex Hicks of Just Alex, or, Jason Solomon of Solomonster Sounds Off, and so on? How would that affect them? Well, it might affect them to the point where they would say, hey, to where they say, hey, we're going to wait until the replay shows up on Max. We'll watch it then, and then we'll give you our thoughts. And they might have to stay off social media. They might have to say, hey, I'm not gonna look at X, formerly Twitter. I'm not gonna look at Facebook. I'm not gonna look at any messages. People might tweet them, text me. I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna wait until I see the replay and go from there. That might be what happens when it comes to AEW. That might be what happens. But now you might say, well, wait a minute, Brian. Can't they just do that with WWE? Here's the point, though. Like I said, WWE, they still have the pay-per-view model and everything, but they also show it on Peacock for free. And with either ads if you're not a Plus member, or without ads if you are. I'm one that has the Plus portion, the premium portion, so I don't have to worry about that. But the point is, you get to watch the same event for less money because of your subscription to Peacock than what you'd be doing if you were paying for the actual event on actual pay-per-view. And to me, and honestly, that's why, people like JD and Solomonster and all them don't have to worry about that. Here with AEW, if that's going to be the result, not saying it will be, but if that's going to be the result, they might have to say, hey, I want to save some money, so I'm just going to wait till I watch the replay on Max. And, if that happens, fine. If that's going to be the direction they go in, fine. But again, we'll have to see what they do. We'll have to see what this deal, we'll have to see what this deal, brings to the table, when it's all said and done. But again, I'll give Tony Khan credit because it sounds like he's got two separate teams working on these two separate deals, so there's no discombobulation confusion, if you know what I mean. But what do you guys think about this? What are your thoughts on this deal? And I'll put it in the description. I'll put the article in the description. What are your thoughts on this deal? This 3-year deal with this possible 3-year, $170 million deal with a 1-year option, to be, possibly used in the future. What are your thoughts on that? Let me know down below in the comments. I'd love to hear what you have to say about it. Because again, I know people will make the comparison to WWE's deal with Netflix and stuff, and it's like, yeah, that's, that is a good comparison. But again, let me know what your thoughts are. Let me know what your thoughts are. I'd love to hear from each and every one of you on this. And until next time, guys, before I go, I will say, like the video, subscribe to the channel, ring the bell for notifications. Also, go to my Teespring store. Link will be in the description, at the bottom of the description. Go to my Teespring store. Check out that for merchandise you can't get anywhere else, especially in time for the fall. Get yourself a long sleeve shirt, a mug, a mouse pad, you name it, which you can find will be there. Also, check me out at rumble.com at BWRoses, odyssey.com at BWRoses. Also, check me out at deviantart.com at BVW1979. Also, check me out at twitch.tv at BWRoses and at kick.com. I haven't got nothing up on Kick just yet, but eventually I will. But check me out at kick.com, BWRoses. Also, check me out at all your favorite audio and video podcast affiliates like iHeartRadio, Pandora, Audible, Spotify for podcasters, Spotify, iTunes, Radio Public, you name it, you will find me there. But guys, let me know what your thoughts are. I'd love to hear how you feel about all this. And until next time, I am out.